Okay, so a few days ago I put out a video in response to another creator going over whether or not nostalgia is hurting the monster taming genre and holding these games back. Basically, I was defending the claim that the games within the genre, specifically Coromon, Nexomon, Temtem, and Monster Crown, don't actually build on the Pokemon formula, but instead just capitalize on its nostalgia. I highly recommend checking out that video after you're done here if you do believe that's the case, because I think I brought forth some compelling arguments against those claims. Anyways, in the comment section of that video, I saw a lot of people saying that most games, or the vast majority of games in the genre, are Pokemon-like in nature, and games like Monster Sanctuary and others are essentially the vast minority. Today's video is going to be refuting and discussing that. This won't be a long video, but I do think it's important to distinguish which games are more known in the genre versus how many games there are that actually deviate from the Pokemon-like subcategory. Okay, so it's no secret that the Pokemon-like games in the genre, such as Nexomon, Coromon, and Temtem, are pretty widely known at this point. There are likely several reasons for this, whether it be through the fact that people enjoy these games or through people using them to make a surface level argument that Pokemon is better or good enough so that all these other games are copying it or whatever. There's also the added layer of the fact that I personally really like games like this because I am a Pokemon fan. I've always been a Pokemon fan, and getting new experiences that are both familiar but also fresh causes me to gravitate towards these games more heavily. I haven't really talked too much about the current state of the genre as far as where information comes from and how certain things are popularized, but as far as general monster taming news and stuff like that, I think my YouTube channel is probably one of the biggest sources in the genre, so when people search up my channel, they might see a lot of these types of games and then come to the conclusion that monster taming games are all like Pokemon. I've always said that I cover games within the genre, but I do focus more on games that I personally find more interesting. That is something that's not going to change because it goes against the way my brain works. I can't spend a lot of time playing and making videos and editing for a game that I don't find interesting or I don't enjoy. I've always been that type of person. I have no idea how people can sit there for hours and make content on something they don't like. It doesn't compute in my head. While I'm sure my videos and content have helped, and I have even gotten a lot of comments about people telling me that they found out about these games through me and ended up buying them, I sure as hell was not the reason why Temtem got 500,000 sales back when it launched, you know, when I had 200 subs, or why Coromon got 1 million people to play its demo. Coromon is a bit of an interesting case because when I started covering it, both me and that game were both very small, and we sort of grew off of each other. I was putting eyes on Coromon, and then in turn, when people searched up Coromon, they'd find me, so we both kind of grew simultaneously, but again, I don't have the influence to make 1 million people play a game. So while I do think I might play a part into helping these games sort of get some extra sales and whatnot, there's definitely a lot of people who do enjoy Pokemon-like experiences, and it makes sense. Those that do watch my Monster Tamer news segment or just keep up with the day-to-day will know that these claims that most games in the genre are Pokemon-like just aren't true. Now, one thing that we may disagree on is what you would consider Pokemon-like. To me, Pokemon-like games are games like Temtem, Coromon, Nexomon, Drugimon, New Monsters, etc. These are all turn-based RPGs with a relatively linear story path to follow and combat systems very heavily reminiscent of Pokemon, but usually with an added stamina system and other caveats that make them each unique. This is not a bad thing, but I can safely say that while these games do in fact add their own twist on the formula, the comparisons to Pokemon are justified, and many of us love these games just for that reason. You next have games that might be like Pokemon in one particular aspect, but have a lot of differences to the point where you'd have to really focus in on one particular point to really call them Pokemon-likes. For example, I saw in the Adam Millard video, he called Monster Crown a Pokemon-like. The thing is, Monster Crown's overworld design, while reminiscent of Pokemon, is also reminiscent of many other types of old school GBC RPGs, and the battle system has a lot of differences from Pokemon besides allowing you to pick different moves, which again is not Pokemon specific. So there's definitely Pokemon inspirations to be had in Monster Crown, but I'd say calling it a Pokemon-like is pushing it. But I'd understand if someone did just by taking a quick glance at the game without researching its inner workings. You could also argue that games like Abomination belong here because its battle system is like Pokemon, but then pretty much everything else about the game is completely different. The entire game's a roguelike, plot is nothing similar, the world is randomly generated, you actually play as the monsters. So again, I wouldn't call this camp of games Pokemon-like, but I also wouldn't trash on someone for including them as well. Then you have the games that are absolutely nothing like Pokemon. Look at the Shin Megami Tensei games or the games inspired by it. This is where you get games like Eternal Exodus, Malice and Greed, Mirrored Soul, Fog World, etc. The Megami Tensei franchise, for example, predates Pokemon, so if these are too similar to Pokemon, then that's Pokemon's doing, not theirs. We also have a ton of games that feature completely unique mechanics and that are not directly inspired by one particular game that you'd be foolish to even try to call a Pokemon-like. I can literally start naming a bunch of them, and this is going to be kind of annoying to edit, but screw it. You have Monster Sanctuary, Cassette Beasts, Nanokin, Mythcaller, Essentures, Monster Hunter Stories, Monster Rancher, Cirillum, Guild of Dragons, Creature Keeper, Newtown Needs Tamer, Paleo Pines, Anatons, Ninth Dawn 3, Monster Tribe, Gremlin's Tale, Asile, Tinker and Spell, Moncraft, Disc Creatures, Rainbow Billy, Ooblets, Xenoscape, Pry Into the Void, Biomancer, and a whole lot more. One thing you'll notice about a lot of these games is they're not actually out yet, which also affects how much attention is put on them. So basically the main takeaway of this video is while there are definitely Pokemon-like games in the genre, and it might even be the most common sub-niche within the genre, the monster taming library of games is by no means flooded with these types of games. They are not the majority. If you felt like any of the games I mentioned in that last part should have been considered Pokemon-like, I want you to think to yourself, other than battling creatures, which Pokemon didn't invent, what classifies these games as Pokemon-likes? For example, Disc Creatures might look like something you'd expect to see from a Pokemon-like, but the combat system's completely unique, and this sort of top-down aesthetic is similar to Pokemon, but it's also similar to many other top-down RPGs, like I said with Monster Crown, and even still, an art style can be a nod to something, but not necessarily indicative of a game that is a clone, or even similar to that, other than that art style. So with all of that being said, I do hope this video will at least change the minds of maybe some people who aren't too invested in the genre, or those that didn't really take the time to dive into the nitty-gritty of what it has to offer. For those that tend to be really vitriolic and combative when it comes to monster taming and like to throw around the Pokemon clone and knockoff narrative, I've realized that no amount of argumentation will ever change these people's minds because they don't want to make their own points based on argumentation, but rather an emotional response to what they perceive as a threat. But to all of you who are open-minded, which our sexy community is full of, let me know what you think of the whole situation and which type of monster taming games you like particularly. As for me, I'm just hoping this sheds a little more light on the situation and context for the genre as a whole. So yeah, if you are a monster taming fan, definitely subscribe to my channel. I put out new videos every single day. You can check out my Twitter, my Discord, my Patreon, all links below. Special thanks to the patrons, especially Jim Hamilton, Steel Case, Dark Persona, and Dro Ghost. And with that, we'll see you guys next time. Peace.